Every oil and gas field has a life cycle, from discovery of the field and construction of the platform to operation, maintenance and finally decommissioning. In the UK sector of the North Sea, decommissioning takes place under a mature regulatory process. Responsibility for ensuring decommissioning complies with UK regulations rests with the Department of Energy and Climate Change. After 40 years of service, decommissioning of Shell's Brent field is underway. The Department of Energy and Climate Change, or DEC, stipulates certain activities that must be done. In line with these regulations, Shell is plugging and making safe all the wells in the Brent field, removing all 4 of the platform's top sides, recovering seabed debris, and removing the attic oil, a layer of oil trapped at the top of the subsea storage cells. For those parts of the field that aren't stipulated by regulation, an operator is required to complete a detailed process of comparative assessment to identify and examine the various options for decommissioning. The process assesses and compares the pros and cons of each option in a verifiable and transparent manner. The objective is to show, on balance, which option offers the best solution and provide a significant reason why any option other than full removal is preferable. Shell is completing comparative assessments for drill cuttings, pipelines, the alpha steel jacket, options for the 3 gravity-based structures, and contents of the storage cells. Although there is no specific requirement in the regulation for a comparative assessment of the content in the storage cells, Shell has opted to follow the same process to be consistent. The outcome of a comparative assessment may suggest leaving a structure or supporting infrastructure in place. If it does, the OSPAR Convention requires that an operator must show in a fully evaluated and reasoned manner that there are significant reasons why sea disposal or leaving in place is preferable to reuse, recycling or final disposal on land. OSPAR, the Oslo-Paris Convention, was set up to protect and conserve the marine environment of the North East Atlantic. OSPAR recognises that there may be particular difficulties and risks associated with removing large steel structures or the concrete gravity bases of some platforms. So OSPAR provides for operators decommissioning offshore structures to make a case for exemption from the general rule of complete removal. They call this exemption derogation. If an operator identifies any cases requiring OSPAR to approve a derogation, DEC asks the operator to provide the comparative assessments in derogation case documents. These are part of the decommissioning programme submitted for approval, which DEC then submits to OSPAR for consideration. Ultimately, DEC will make the final decision. DEC stipulate there are 5 main criteria that must be used in the comparative assessment process. Each item to be decommissioned must be examined against these criteria. They are safety, environmental, societal, economic, and technical. As a starting point, Shell decided to weight each of the 5 main criteria equally at 20%. Then each of the criteria was reviewed and further split into appropriate sub-criteria to enable a more comprehensive comparison between the different options available. For example, safety was broken down to consider the risks that a particular option could pose to offshore personnel, onshore personnel, and other users of the sea, like fishermen. On closer inspection, some options were identified as not being technically feasible. After consultation with stakeholders and external experts, these were discarded early in the process. Studies commissioned from independent experts, Shell analysis, and industry norms were then used to inform the assessment of each sub-criteria. Shell then analysed the performance of each option in each sub-criteria and with the help of independent experts, transformed all these different measures into a score. The scores for each sub-criteria were then weighted and a total weighted score obtained for each of the options for each of the structures. This allowed Shell to develop a single measure that could be used to compare one option with the other. As part of this rigorous process, Shell also conducted sensitivity testing. One criteria would be increased to 40% weighting, with the other criteria evenly reduced, and in one case cost was removed altogether, to understand if it would change the outcome of the comparative assessment. Over the last 9 years, Shell and a team of expert consultants have completed a wide range of studies to inform the comparative assessment process. Each of these studies has been reviewed by an independent group of recognised scientific, technical and environmental experts to ensure they are robust. The results of the comparative assessments form the basis of the decision-making process. Broader considerations like stakeholder feedback and other non-technical elements are also taken into account for arriving at the appropriate recommendations for the decommissioning programme. Whilst the comparative assessment will inform Shell's final decision, each recommendation will be described in a document that will explain all the considerations taken into account, the matters assessed, and reasons for the recommendations. Decommissioning has many challenges and difficulties which need to be overcome. The comparative assessment is a useful tool in ensuring that all the options available are identified, assessed, weighed up, and the best possible outcome is reached in a consistent and transparent manner.